Well, hey there. It is Feedback Friday, and we're going to give you feedback on your art, your paintings, and you can learn from other people's critiques so that you can make your paintings or drawings better. All right. We're going to teach you also a composition technique. Today's technique is called the balanced scales composition. And if you study composition, you study these different composition techniques. That way, when you are making a painting, you're trying to decide what you're going to do, it will help you tremendously decide, well, what's going to make it look right? What's going to make it feel right? So today we have 6 different paintings. We're going to see if we can make them better. Let's look at those paintings right now. We have some tremendous paintings, and we have people all over the world, and we have actually a whole cache of paintings that have been submitted from people, and people at all different levels. And the question is, these are all good, so what do you do to make them better? Well, the thing I want you to do is to think about that as you're watching. So when I bring up an image, I want you to think about, what would I do to make this better? Now, I go through the images in black and white, and then we talk about values. Values are the scale of darks to light, and we talk about color, and we talk about composition. So when you're seeing these, what I'd like you to do is to ask yourself, what do I see? What would I do? Now, here's the reality, is you put 5 people in a room, 5 artists in a room to critique paintings, and they're all going to come up with 5 different things. We all see things differently. And so I'm not going to be the same as, say, a Kevin McPherson or a Scott Christensen or a Susie Baker. So you want to just keep in mind that everybody's got a little different opinion, and they're not all wrong. I mean, the idea here is to just look for ways that we can make things better. Some people have different focuses in their work, better edges or better brushwork or better color or muted color or otherwise. And so there's a lot of different ways to skin that cat. Let's get this show officially started.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhoads.
Okay, we're here every weekday at 12 noon on Art School Live, have been since COVID, 5 days a week, and we love having you guys here. Thank you. Please make sure to give a follow on social media, and if you would give a subscribe, go to YouTube, look up Art School Live and subscribe. That way, when we go live, you'll be there. All right? Now, I got to tell you, I'm going to be away. All right? And so, excuse me, this is my final, hopefully not my final ever, heaven forbid, but I'm going to be away for a while. I have so much going on, which I'll tell you about in a little bit, that I'm going to have some guest hosts come in and step in for me so that I can get busy. During COVID, I didn't have to go on the road and work, but now I have to, right? Okay. So we have some paintings we've submitted, and we have a few brave souls. So you guys are brave. If you want to submit your paintings, here's how to do it. Just submit yours to streamlinepublishing.com/feedback-Friday. Now, I have some rules that I think are important about critiquing paintings. And that is, don't destroy somebody. Don't let your ego get in the way. Just because you're more accomplished or you're at a better place, that doesn't mean that you have to be unkind. Now, I've had some tough critiques, and I've had some mean critiques, and there's a difference. Tough is good, mean is not good, because mean destroys people. Mean people are sensitive about their work, and some more sensitive than others. I watched a lady get critiqued one time, and she broke into tears, and she left the class and never came back. We don't want that. That doesn't accomplish anything. All it does is drives people away from art. We don't want to do that. So we want to be kind. We want to look for positive things that we can say. And we always want to keep in mind that just because we're at a certain level doesn't mean everybody is. So there's nothing personal in any of these critiques. Everything is opinion, and we're not here to hurt anybody. Now, remember, when you're being critiqued, it's hard for you to hear. I always go, la, 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 because we don't like to hear the bad news. But you need to look at it and say, hey, how can I learn? How can I get better? But you're going to learn more from watching other people's paintings being critiqued. We're going to do 6 paintings today, and we're going to do a composition. So make sure you submit things, and we'll get right to it. So what's our first image here? Okay, the first one we're going to do here is Alice Stepan from Slovenia. Is it Slovenia? Slovenia, I believe. All right, nice job. It's ALES, ALS. It's a beautiful painting. Let's go to the black and white version and see what we've got here. It looks to me like this is a watercolor. Looks very watercolory to me anyway. I'm not seeing very high quality image here, but we're going to look at the composition. We're going to look at the darks and the lights and the values. So the first thing I like to do is ask myself, how's the composition? And what tends to happen is we tend to break the canvas in half, and we tend to put things right in the halfway point and sometimes right in the middle. And what we have here, Alice has done a little bit of that, right? So he has his horizon line right there, which is right down the middle. Now, we were all taught in kindergarten to put everything dead center and put everything like that, but that tends to make things less interesting. This painting might be stronger if we put the horizon line up here. You got the trees and you got the mountain, and then you got the big tree over here, and then things are leading in much more. So that's called a high horizon line. The other option is to go for a low horizon line where you don't have, you have a little bit of this lead in, and then you have your trees, and then you have your mountain, and then you make it all about the sky, right? So you can do it either way. And of course you can do it the way you've done it. If you want to do it, that's fine too. But this might make it a little bit more interesting. So I think the other thing I like to do is what I call the tic-tac-toe board, which is divide things into equal third quadrants, roughly equal. And these, again, these are suggestions. They're not necessarily rules. And this gives you an opportunity to see where are ideal places to place a focal point. Now, you really only want to have one focal point, not more than one. So you might pick and say, okay, this is my focal point here, this tree, and we'll maybe move it up into here a little bit more. And then you might have a secondary focal point, which are these trees, which you maybe move into, into this quadrant or in this quadrant. But you want to keep one primary focal point. Now let's look at the values. Now values are tougher with watercolor because it's just tougher to get a good dark in watercolor. You have to go over things multiple times, but you want to squint down at things. You squint and try to make things fuzzy, and you ask yourself, what's happening here? And you've got your darkest dark in two places. One is here and one is here, and you have a little bit of this dark right in here. And typically what I try to say is get your darkest dark up front somewhere, little less dark. So you want to have, if you're going back in space and you're doing darks, let's just do a little exercise and let's try to show that. So you want to have a really good dark in the foreground, and then you want to maybe have a little less dark in there, and then a little less dark in here, and then a little less dark in here, and then maybe even a little less dark in here. Now, it's hard. You've got to get some contrast, and it's hard to do that. So your darks don't have to quite go that light, but you want to make sure that you're sending the signal that things are going back and receding in space. Now, if we were doing this in a color exercise, then we would be making them greener and bluer, and then almost no yellow in them at all. And we'll do that. Maybe we'll do that on the color version. So anyway, that's what I'd like to see here. Is I'd like to see you pump up the darks in the front. So let's just do that for a second. Let's get this dark, and let's see if we can get that just a little bit darker. So we get a little darker shadow in the front, and maybe bring your shadows out. I like to get nice strong shadows in the front. I don't always do it, but it just makes things a little more interesting. And that way, and I'm just going to go in here and fuzz this fuzz this a little bit so it feels a little bit more shadowy. And that way what happens is it kind of takes the foreground out of attention. And now what you do is you look for ways that you can take that. This one here is about right, and then you could have another one back here just to create the sense of consistency. There's another shadow back there. Maybe we'll make that slightly darker. But the idea is that you want your darks to recede. So I would also get a good dark right here at the base of this tree in this foliage, and try to, really state that you've got a nice, good, solid dark up front. Now, what we're going to do, I don't want to mispronounce your name, ales maybe. We're going to go to the color version, and let's look at that. This is just lovely. This has got a really nice feel to it. It just really is beautiful. I can't find a lot wrong with it, but I'll point out a couple of things that I might do a little bit differently. So we talked about shadows. Okay, so I'm just going to go into the color version and get, you can have the shadows kind of go over the land here. And you don't know what's over here, so you could potentially even do shadow in this whole foreground area. And that might just help draw a little less attention to the foreground and more attention to the back. And you might even be able to get some darker spots in towards the front here. And then we can go in and we can lessen these up. We're going to go for brown. So we maybe get a little darker brown in the front here on this, and this could be a brownish color because it's on the dirt. It could be, you can if you put warmer shadows up front, that's probably warmth is usually up front, but you can also put, some blue in that. You get a little color in your shadow. That you want to have a little variation in your shadows. And then, as you go backwards in space, you can lighten these up. But I would darken your line to wherever it is you're driving things. Now, when you have lines like this, whether you like it or not, you're driving people to a spot. And so you want to make sure that if that's the spot you're going to drive people to, that you want to have a little bit of eye candy there, right? So you've got this tree here. Why not move this tree? I don't know if I can, let's see if I can figure out how to do this. Let's see here. Oh, I saw it. Okay, so we could clone this tree over here. And maybe we make that tree a little go up. Let's see here. Maybe I'm gonna start this tree up just a little bit higher. We clone that tree, and then we clone some of these other things that are over here. And what's happening now is, hang on. I got to turn that off, I think. Get back to my pen. Okay, so now what happens is we can take this tree out here, and we're drawing the eye into here where the yellow spot is. You see how that makes a difference? And so if you're driving the eye back into here, now you've got some eye candy back there. Now I'd probably take this mountain and create a little space around this tree so that tree is framing it a little bit, maybe put a little of this, more of this color in here so that tree isn't kind of going into there. And then of course you can put some more of this stuff back in here to kind of draw the eye back there. So that does a really good job there. And then I think all of this other stuff looks pretty good. Like I said, you can go to the browns, and you can get get some of these darks stated in here. And so just kind of lead the eye back. And then, or you might want some other kind of eye candy. And then if you want, that bell was the signal that I'm talking too much, but we're going to go on here and just try a little something else here real quickly. I'm going to try to pick up a little bit of light and maybe put a little bit more light on this hill in here, because I want once you see the tree, you kind of want to lead me up in there. And then the question is, do you want to lead me into some clouds? So you could kind of lead me in this direction if you wanted to. And we could potentially just put a little cloud activity in here to try to lead the eye up into here somewhere, maybe put a spot of light on the clouds. So somewhere up in here. That's just, one of the things you can do. Your goal is to circulate people back into the painting. But I think you've done a lovely job here, and I think it's really nice. You just consider those composition tips that I suggested to you. All right, Alice, I'm sorry, please tell me how to pronounce your name. Okay, what's next? Oh, we have a vineyard. We have a lovely vineyard painting. And this painting, I don't see a name on it yet. So well, anyway, congratulations to whoever did this. This painting is really well executed. And I don't see much that I would change with it because it's just so lovely. But there are a couple little things that I might find with it. What I like about it is that it has softened the background so much that you're going, wow, that's really far away. And even has softened the rows of a vineyard as they get back towards the back. And that's really, really smart. So you want to be really careful about where you're softening and where you're hardening the edges, because hardened edges are going to help you a little bit. Let's go through our process and look at this from a compositional standpoint. So I go to the halfway mark, and well, look here, we have kind of our horizon, the end of our hill is kind of there. Now, this is not the horizon up here. This is where the land meets the ground. So if you didn't have this spot in here and you weren't trying to bring the eye in here, maybe the horizon is a little further down, because your rows are all kind of going to that point. So maybe that's your horizon point. That's possibly what's thinking here, but it feels to me like this should be here then, and then move that stuff back. Now, the other thing is, to me, this is kind of dead center. And so you might want to consider moving this up just to make it so it's not dead center. It doesn't have to be all the way up here. And then you've got this secondary horizon, which is high, which I really like. Now, the other thing is the rule of thirds, right? Tic-tac-toe board. And there's not really much focal point in any of this. There's a tree here, but that's not a primary focal point. I think this is primary focal point, and really this row in here is probably the one that's going to get all the attention. And this kind of is in a focal point area here. So I think this is probably your focal point, and you're going to lead me in. So let's go to, let's look at values real quickly. I got to undo all this stuff to look at values. Now, based on what I said in the last time around, where are the darkest darks? And the darkest dark I'm seeing is right here. And that there's a little dark here, there's some darks here, there's a little darks in here, and there's a little dark spots on here. This is kind of dark, but this is your darkest mass. And so what you want to figure out again is, how do I get a good dark up in front? So you might get a really good dark on this fence post and this fence post. You might get a dark shadow into here, so that, and then reduce some of these darks as you go back, make these a little less dark. This is okay to have here, but then, you're getting less dark here, but you've got a lot of strong darks back in here. So I would be a little concerned about that. Let's go to the color version. This is really pretty. I like the warmth of the grass, and I like the warmth of the fall leaves. What I'm feeling here is that all of this is receding beautifully. All of this is receding beautifully, but it's a little bit grayish and a little bit blackish. So what I might want to do is look for a way I can get, get some of these colors into here to go to purples, because once they get into the distance, they're going to lose some of their color, and gray is kind of a tough one. And so what you do is you kind of use purples and blues, and you go back and you try to make things recede a little bit more. And then you might even, maybe we'll go into the blue category, get a gray blue in here. And so get this recession happening so that these things feel a little bluer, and then it just will send the signal that things are going back in distance. Now, what I do is when I put purples down like that, I oftentimes will put a little bit of light on the trees, over the purples, and it still reads like trees. And you have to get the right color, because you don't want to, you want it to be light enough, not too attention getting, and yet it's got to be a desaturated yellow, because yellows kind of lose their color as they go in the background. And then it would be, more of the same. Now, the other thing is you've got some color in here, and this color in here is an opportunity. You've got a little color here. This is an opportunity to look for, how can we enhance the colors just a little bit? So, could you get a little bit more color into these spots? Now, keep in mind that focal point is where you want to have your colors. And so if this is going to be my focal point, then get my colors in here, bump up, some of these reds that you see in the vineyards on here, and maybe a little bit in here, and then really look for a way to pump up some color right in this area where you're trying to draw the eye, if that's where you're trying to draw the eye. And you could even have, for instance, you could have a spot of grass that's just a little, that's too light. Let's get this desaturated a little bit. You could have a spot of grass, a spot of light in here where it's hitting this grass, and then you've got a good strong dark. Let's see here, nice strong dark in here, some strong darks in here, get some darks in the beginning up here, and that will help. And then figure out how to get some darks or some shadows in here and draw the eye back. Now, I'm suffering with composition because I don't know where I want the eye to go. Naturally, the eye is going back here because of what's happening at the edge of this row. You've got a sharp edge here, and you've got stuff going on here. So if you wanted this to be your focal point, then I would move it over to here like that, and then have everything else support it so that's not dead center. Move it over here, and then I would probably look for ways that if I'm going to pump up the light, I'm going to pump up the light, the colors and the light down in here where I want the eye to go. And then I might look for a way to kind of lead the eye down a path, to bring them back here and bring them back here and so on. You'd have to manipulate the colors then. And if that's the case, if you want your color to be, down here, then what you want to do is look for a way to either soften this stuff up in here a little bit more, and then that's probably too soft. I'm going to undo that. But maybe just a little bit of softness in here, and then pump up your sharpness down here where you're really trying to draw attention. Anyway, I think it's a lovely painting as it is. So I would be careful about too many grays. I like gray paintings and value paintings, but I would like to see a little bit more color in this. It can be some subtle color, but get some color in that sky. Where you've got some lights, get some lights in that sky, and then just look for a way to kind of, make it feel like it's got a little bit more richness in it. Light is color, right? Light is typically got some warmth in it. And so look for an opportunity to go in here and just get some color in that. That'll help it. The other thing is you can kind of take your sky and lead it to your focal point. You know, you can make little arrows with sky. So you've got, you know, you don't want it to be too obvious, but you know, you're leading them down from the edges, and that then brings you down to the top of the mountain, which you could put a little bit of light on the top of that mountain, and then, you know, bring them through. Okay, nice job. What do we have next? We have a house, little house on the prairie. Okay, this is Constance from Ontario. All right, Constance, great job. Congratulations. You've been working hard, I can tell. Okay, Constance, so let's look at this in a couple of ways first before we go through this. Let's look at it as a composition. So let's go dead center, and we've got a line in here, dead center. I would try to avoid that. And we have the house edge dead center. So how do we avoid that? Well, you could bring the house edge over here, and you could bring this spot back here over here just by moving things forward a little bit. That would change it. So let me see if I can, whoops. Let me see if I can go back in here and do this. So I'm going to put my house here, and I'm going to just move the house over here. Now, if you just see how that changes it, it makes a big difference in terms of how the composition feels, because it doesn't feel quite so right in the middle. Just that alone makes a big difference. And this spot in the back, well, we're not going to worry about that too much right now. So we've got a pretty good strong dark up in the front, and that's good. These darks here, because this is 10 feet or 20 feet, they need to be reduced just a little bit. And there's little spots of that dark in here that I would kind of knock those back a little bit. I think that overall, though, I think you've done a pretty good job. Let's just work on that composition, and your values are pretty spot on, pretty close. Well, let's look at the color version of this. All right, Constance. So the question I have is, what's the most important thing in this painting? Typically, the eye is going to be drawn to the lightest, brightest, most colorful chroma area and the sharpest point. This area here is drawing the eye. This may be where you want the eye to go. Now, you've got some color here too. You've got a sharp edge here. But I think this painting really is all about the house. And so assuming we had moved the composition, let's just look at a couple of things we could do to make this a little stronger. The first thing is, you've got light is clearly coming from here because you've got this spot of light here, but there's not a lot of things that are indicating that light. So what could we do to indicate that light? Well, first off, if you want to draw attention to this cabin here, then by getting, let's get this light on here, you would pump up the light, right? And maybe make it a little warmer, but you could pump up the light and make it really feel like light. One thing that I suffer with, and a lot of us suffer with, is contrast, not making it contrasty enough. Now, this painting really becomes about this light here when you do that. And I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to just mute this back so there's hardly any light on it at all, because I want the painting to be about the house. Excuse me. The other thing is, I don't want this bright spot in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just mute this back so that it's a little different color. Let's see if we can make this a little darker in here, because I know you're trying to indicate that there's light in there, but let's look for ways we can indicate light in different areas. So right now, that's not drawing the eye anymore. I would be careful about greens. Greens are one of the hardest things to do. And greens, always consider mixing a little red into your greens because greens get a little acidic, and it's nice if you can get them a little bit warmer. I like to warm up my greens. You've got this flower garden in here. It's just drawing the eye. I would probably either make it bigger or get rid of it. Get your greens a little bit warmer. And then I'm just going to fill all this green in right now. And I'm going to show you why for a second. And you've got this clothesline, which is kind of cool. I'll try to keep that there. But what we're going to do is try to pump up the light. So a house in shadow is typically not white or gray. It would be blue. So let's put this house in shadow in blue, because this is not the side that's catching the light. Or if it is, it's not reading like that. Okay. So that's probably could be a little bit grayed down a little bit. So we're going to do that. And then what we're going to do is look for an opportunity to really pump up the warm light on this house. So the warm light is hitting the edge of the house. Maybe it's hitting part of the house. You know, I like to do like angled shadows, like there's something in the way that's blocking it, so it doesn't feel like this big giant mass. And then I would look for ways to kind of lead the eye in by, you know, putting some light on there. Now you're going to take your grass and you're going to say, okay, I don't want to draw too much attention, but I'm going to have a spot of light that's going to really read like the grass is, you know, maybe there's a touch of it back here, but you really want to be kind of bringing the eye in. As a matter of fact, I would do this. I would kind of end that there so that the eye goes up, you know, into there. So that's what you could do. Now, if you wanted to make, if your intent was to make the house in light, then let's put it in real light. Okay. So I'm going to keep this dark in the foreground here because I want to draw the attention to the light. So let's go back to this house and find ourselves a nice warm light and figure out, okay, how do we get some of that light onto this house? And now you're going to have some variation. You've got variation in your color, but how do we make this feel like it's more in light? And that's what I would do. Now, again, we're going to move the house over here so that the composition is a little bit stronger. And then, you know, you can fuss with some of these other elements, like making these shutters just a little less dark and some of this stuff. Okay. So that's kind of what I might do. Now, the other thing I just want to point out to you, my dear Constance, is that one of the things that we tend to do as early stage painters, and I don't know if you are, but I was, is I want to put every detail in. And details, if everything is sharp, you got sharp here. Let me get my red on. If everything is sharp, then your eye just doesn't know where to go because everything is sharp, right? You got all these sharp edges. You got sharp edges everywhere on the windows. And so what happens is it just, and you've got all these sharp edges in here. What you want to look for an opportunity, I learned this from Richard Schmid, is you want to look for an opportunity to break up edges. And so what he would do is he might take a palette knife and make a really nice sharp edge along here because that's where he wanted to draw attention. But he might take the palette knife and then smudge it a little bit in a couple of places so that it feels, so it's not quite so perfect, because perfect draws the eye. And then, you know, you can indicate, you don't have to put every one of these lines in. You can put a couple of them in here and there, and then have them really be a little softer so that you're indicating that these are the clapboards of the house. That's more impressionistic. Again, and then just look for sharp edges. The other thing is be careful about corners, right? If you want something in a corner, make sure that you're making good use of that corner so that you're not just making it about that corner. You know, this painting, you know, you've got this, you got all of this, but the question is, what's this painting about? Is it about this? Is it about this? Is it about this? Is it about this? That's the decision you got to make when you're going through things. All right, what's next? Ooh, okay. So this is a lovely painting. This is from Lisa Blackshear in North Carolina. I wonder if there's a great artist by the name of Blackshear. I wonder if she's related. This is really lovely, and I like the impressionistic style. Now, this is a really great example, if you think about the other painting, how if you mush things together a little bit, it's softer, it's a more impressionistic, but it has a really nice feel to it. So look at this and ask yourself the questions about where's my darkest dark, and my darkest dark is here. There's a dark, dark here, dark, dark here, dark, dark there, dark in here. But what's happening is we're missing some of this. We got a little dark in here, but we're missing, you got a nice shadow thing going on here. So what if we were to really go in here and put a dark shadow in here? Now, in a shadow, depending on the type of shadow it is, if it's a cast shadow, you usually got a little bit of a softer edge. And so, and usually, so, you know, soften the edges of your shadows mostly, unless it's something that's a specific close cast. And that alone will just get some of that dark in there, and that will help it a little bit. I would also look for an opportunity to enhance the darks at the front of this fountain just a little bit more, create a little bit more form. And you've got a nice thing in the fountain here. And then I would get some more darks on this, even if you didn't see them there, and maybe a little bit more dark around this, because clearly the fountain is the focal point, I would think. And so you want to really enhance that. Everything else becomes secondary, right? And so all of this stuff in the background here is supporting cast, it's secondary. Now, what we've got going on here, compositionally, let's take a look at that. We have dead center, nothing dead center. We've got the line of this fountain, but that's not egregious. And we have tic-tac-toe. Here we go. And so this could be a focal point. If this were moved over just a little tiny bit, this is secondary focal point, and that's good. And this kind of acts as a third focal point. So, but if you want something in the painting, but you don't want it to be focal point or noticeable, soften the edges like she did on this. Now you've got a sharp edge on this, you got a sharp edge here, sharp edge here, and sharp edges draw the eye. And so if you mush that back a little bit, maybe even reduce this color down a little bit, you're going to draw the eye into here, and then you want good sharp edges on here. We're going to go to the color version now. This is really a lovely painting. Lisa, I like this painting a lot. If I were a judge, I'd be giving this a prize. Now, let's just go through some of the things we talked about. The color changes things a lot, but one thing we want to ask ourselves is where is the light coming from? And I'm having a hard time telling that. I can't tell if the light is overhead, if it's coming from here, where it's coming from. And that's usually creating some confusion to the viewer. So let's figure out where we're going to make the light come from. And I think we're going to make it come from here in this particular case. Now, I want to pump up the light, and I want to pump up the light pretty heavily in a couple spots. First off, remember, light tends to be warmer. So I want to pump up the light on the edge of this statue here, and really bring a lot of attention to this statue, right? Or this fountain, right? And so in my focal point area, and then I'm going to take this white here, and I'm just going to enhance that just a little bit more. Maybe not everywhere, but maybe in the focal point area, because this would be my focal point. And because if we, let's say we said this, so this is kind of in the tic-tac-toe board area. The other thing I would do is I would probably just take this light, and maybe it's a pinkish light. Let's see if we can find kind of the right color. I would just enhance this just a little bit more. Now, we want it to feel, now the shadow's going this direction, so maybe the light's coming from here. So if that's the case, then we pump up the light over here. Maybe we pump this. Let's try this. Okay. So because of that shadow, that fooled me. So I'm just going to change what I was telling you about and change this around and make some quick changes so that you can see, now that we know where the light's coming from. I didn't catch that. So we're going to take this shadow. I'm going to deepen this shadow just a little bit more, just to make it feel like you can really tell where that light's coming from. And then I'm going to pump up the light over here, because the light's coming from here. And I'm going to pump up the light on this. You've got the light pumped up on that pretty well. I'm making it a little warmer. And then this is going to really draw the attention by putting all this light into here, right? And then, you can have spots of light in other places, but remember, they're going to draw attention. You have a spot of light on that roof, but I wouldn't want to draw too much attention to it. And you might even put a spot of light a little bit more on there, but you want to be careful not to do big spots of light. You want your heaviest light to be coming in to your focal point, where you're driving the focal point. And then I would still do what I said before, and that is I would pump up, get some of this pinkish light, pump this light up just a little bit more, get some contrast in there. And that contrast will serve you well because it helps it read like it's a painting. And then we're going to take this dark in the front. We're just going to enhance that a little bit more, enhance some of these darks, and maybe enhance the shadow just a little bit more, so that it gives it a little bit more sense of contrast. And then you're going to take this light here, maybe not pure white, but you're going to make that go into here, and then maybe get a little water into this fountain. Water typically reflects the sky. Get a little blue in there. That gives it a little color variation. And I think this is really lovely. I think if you make a couple little changes to it, a couple spots of light here and there, I think that helps it considerably. Makes it feel like it's really getting a lot of light, and that's the goal here, is to make it feel like it's getting a lot of light. But most of your light is going to be in here. Okay, nice job, Lisa. Okay, what are we doing next? Oh, elephants. Oh. Okay, so this painting is, Paula, this painting is really interestingly sculptural, and I like that. It feels very three-dimensional to me. Looking at the value study, you can feel how the form is moving. Change that. You feel how the form is moving, right? You got nice darks in here, nice movement of form. And because of the way that the paint is piled on, it feels very sculptural, which is very interesting. I like it. And so let's look at composition. Dead center. Well, nothing going on there. You got your horizon line a little bit back further, which is good. You've got this elephant is dead center. So that's not a bad thing in this type of a composition. I think it really makes sense. You've got kind of a really interesting V, almost a V composition here, which is kind of nice. And because this is, even though this mama elephant is dead center, this one being so close to it over here, it just really does not feel off kilter. So I think you've done a good job. I would look at my darks and I would say, okay, what can I do with my darks? Maybe it's a little bit more dark in the foreground, and you don't have any good strong darks in the back, which is good. I might just look for a couple opportunities to enhance my form just a little bit more. Now, the other question is, where do you want the eye to go? Do you want the mama elephant or the baby elephant, or both? I mean, you can do both, but let's go to the color version. All right, very sculptural. Now, I would imagine, I don't know elephant skin, whether it's warm or gray or cool or not. So I'm feeling like I'm a little lost. I can't tell a couple of things. First off, I can't tell if this is water in here. I think it's water, but I can't tell. This feels to me like it's probably a leg, but it feels like if it's a leg, it's too far down. So maybe this leg is here, this leg is here. So maybe it's not too far down, but it's maybe I'd make it a little less far down because it does feel like it's it's coming out. I also would like to get a feel for some water in here. So maybe try to figure out how do I bump up this light in here just a little bit more so that I know that it's water. You can put little rings of water around where their feet are hitting, and you can have a sense of water. The thing about this painting is it's kind of busy, and I don't mean that in an insulting way, but this is such an area that needs attention. I would look for a way to just make it less busy. So all this activity of rocks and things that are down here, now it might not be rocks, it might not be water, it might be grass, but I would look for a way to just kind of make this feel like a big mass. Sometimes big masses, especially horizontal masses, will help give rest to a painting. So maybe we've got a little of this light in here and we've got a big mass. So it's like they're dipping into the water here, and just that alone helps it. And then you've got all this tree work in the background back in here, and it's all pretty busy, and that's okay. But what I might consider doing is just looking for a way to soften this background just a little bit, make it a little less busy, right? Because this way it makes everything about the elephants. If you remember the last painting we critiqued a couple of minutes ago that had that mountain in the background, they made everything soft. Just by making things soft, it really helps. Now the other thing is your light. You've got light on the elephants, but it looks like it's a gray day, and so you might want to just look for an opportunity to, do I pump up the light? Do I try to get a little bit more contrast in the light in the background? Look for a way that kind of outlines your elephant, right? And you could do that. And then you also could potentially look for a way to pump up the light just a little bit more on this elephant here. Just look for ways. You've got some pretty good light in there, but look for ways to get a little bit stronger form in there, and that will probably help it. Those tusks are like, ooh, those are cool. And then we put an eyeball here. No, just kidding. Just kidding. That one's hard for me, but I think just simplify the foreground, simplify the background, make it all about the elephants. That would be good. If you wanted to, you could emphasize one elephant over the other. So you could make this elephant getting a lot more light and a lot more attention, and then you could gray back this one so that it's all about the baby. But quite frankly, this is really about mama and baby. Okay, we have another one. We do. We have this shed, this old shed. This is Robert Koch from Indiana. All right, Robert, nice job. I'm from Indiana. Okay, so let's look at this compositionally, and let's look at it from values. So first off, compositionally, dead center, dead center. Well, the top of the shed is dead center. And so you might want to consider moving it down or moving it up a little bit. And otherwise, it's compositionally, it looks pretty good. Let's look at it from the standpoint of the third rule of thirds. Okay, so it's kind of not hitting on one or the other, but what I would probably do is I'd move this out just a little bit more and make this hole here and make this shed in here just a little bit more. Although quite frankly, it's pretty good placement. So now let's look at values. Darkest value, the roof here, a little bit of dark value in here. And these are even fairly dark, but what if we darken, what if we take this value and we just get it in here? All right, so what this is doing is it's just helping everything recede a little bit more, right? So get some good darks stated on this. You've got good darks up front. And now that just doing that alone helps it considerably. It doesn't have to be all dark in the front, but that helps it. And then your darks in the background work. So this is all pretty good. I would watch these darks here, this dark here, because they're kind of interfering. So let's look at the color. All right, Robert, good job. Now, let's consider that we've already thought about that composition strategy. And let me ask you this. What color is the shed? Well, it's probably gray wood. It's probably gray rotting wood. But it needs, what this painting, ask yourself this, is this predominantly warm or is it predominantly cool? Typically what you want to do is look for a way to make one predominant, one or the other. And the reality is that this thing is in sunshine, and when it's in sunshine, even if there's late afternoon sun, which is best time to paint, I think, there's late afternoon sun, then even if it's gray, that's gonna, you get some Indian yellow on there, on that sun to really emphasize the brightness of that sun. And that alone is going to make this thing pop, because you've got a cool over here and now you've got a warm. Now your greenery is very cool, and greenery can be cool and it can be warm. So what I would look for is an opportunity to get a nice warm light, a little bit more warm light in here. See if we can pump this up just a little bit. I don't want it to be too acidic, but around your focal point, this is kind of hard to get the right color mix. I want it to be more neutral, but get some good warm lights in here. And I like this angle. I think the angle leads me in. And so, you might want to look for an opportunity to make that grass recede just a little bit, get some warm lights in here. And then I wouldn't make it all super warm, but anything that's in light needs to feel a little warmer. So look for ways to get a little bit of warmth in here and keep your light kind of in this focal point area. Don't put it everywhere. And so I would probably maybe move some of this back, and then just make it so that the light is really hitting right around here, so that you're kind of keeping it in this focal point area. I probably would even reduce this back. Now, I can't tell, that shadow is pretty green. I would probably make that shadow just a little bit blue-ish. So we can find the right color blue. Maybe make this shadow a little, that's probably too blue. But we would probably make it a kind of a bluish green. I can't pick a bluish green in here very easily, but that's probably too light. So this is, it's all, by the way, strengthening that shadow there in that green like you had is pretty good. Just try to figure out what's the equivalent value in a blue or a purple. That would help it quite a bit. And then you've got all this foliage back here. It's nice. It's pretty busy, but that's okay. You soften this up just a little bit in the background so that you're making this all about this shed, right? All these tree trunks and stuff are just there for show. And then, you've got some nice opportunity to again, you want to showcase the light, right? So you got some nice opportunity to get some nice warm light. Nice. By the way, here's a tip. Whenever you have light against a shadow, if you want to put in some detail right there, it'll feel like the whole plant is in detail, but you're really just putting it where the light meets the shadow. All this stuff down here doesn't really matter, but everybody's going to go, oh, there's some lights there. You could have a little bit of reflected light coming in here too, just to pick up a little bit of warmth, reflected light in here, maybe some reflected light from the green in here, kind of reflecting onto this thing here. But just by doing that, what you've done is you've really enhanced it. And then I might even look for a chance to put a couple of hot spots in it, just make it even brighter in a couple of spots. I like to do corners and edges. And especially if you're trying to draw attention to it, then a strong edge, just get a little bit of some more hot spots in it. And that just changes it, maybe even, I can't, out of order. Okay. And then let's look for a way to get some of this shadow color in here too. So whenever you get a dark against the light, what happens is it makes that light pop even more. So I don't like that. I don't like this green color in the front. I would prefer to have it be a little bit warmer and a little bit lighter. So maybe that's not green at all. Maybe it's yellow. But anyway, you can mess with it. But that's a lovely painting. You did a nice job on that, Robert. Okay, are we done? Do we have any more? Oh, we have composition. All right. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at composition, and composition is important because it makes or breaks a painting. And so this today is called a balanced scale composition. So the idea is that if you have a scale and you have, the typical scale, you have the lady holding the scale, all things are equal, right? And so you're looking for what can I do to create a balanced scale. Now there's also what's a fulcrum could have a scale like that. And that's a little bit different, but a balanced scale painting would be using, looking for ways to make things look equal. So what could you do? You could have, for instance, let's say you've got a mountain, right? Got a mountain here, and you've got, maybe a foreground, maybe you've got a road going into it and so on. And then you've got two trees. Now, you want to have them, you don't want to have them identical. You want to have them one a little higher than the other, one a little thinner or thicker than the other, because we have this tendency to do this and put everything in between. And that's uninteresting. Where if you do this and you do this, it's more interesting. And that's more kind of also like the steel yard, right? Which is like this or like this, right? But the idea is to have a mass and a mass, and then you've got your triangle. So this is one way to approach it. The opposite could be true, of course, too, is, you could do it, doesn't have to be a particular shape, but it could be like a cloud, and a cloud. And then, you've got your landscape here and your road going into it. And, maybe it's, some bushes and things, but, it's kind of like balanced, pretty close. And then you make your composition something like that. So that's a balanced scale composition. All right. Does that make sense? I'm hoping so. Okay. Well, this has been fun. We love doing Feedback Friday. It is a terrific thing to do for me because I learn from it every time I do it. And, that's the goal, right? You want to be learning and growing. You can subscribe to this program. We're here every weekday. On Mondays, we do Art Marketing Mondays. On Fridays, we do Feedback Fridays. And in between, we do art lessons with various artists all around the country. Before we go, I want to tell you about a couple of things. First off, next week I'm going to be gone because I'm doing Pastel Live, which is our online pastel conference. What's interesting to me is you would think they would be getting smaller since COVID, but we actually are hitting numbers that are either equal to or better than we were doing before. Like this year's Pastel Live is going to be slightly bigger, not a lot bigger, but slightly bigger than last year's Pastel Live. And there are hundreds of people from all over the United States and all over the world who are going to be watching. And it's a great way to learn about pastel, whether you're a beginner or whether you want to get to the next level. And if you're not a pastel painter, it's a great way to get out of your box and try new things. I am having a great time doing pastel. I don't consider myself a pastel painter, but I have workstations set up in my easel. You'll see them on Pastel Live because I'm doing it from my studio. And I have workstation for watercolor, workstation for oil, a workstation for pastel. Watercolor and gouache, I do at the same place. And that way I can just kind of move from one to the other if I get bored with one thing, and it informs me in other ways. We have some of the world's leading pastel people who are going to be on, and you can sign up. And if you sign up before Sunday, you can still get the current lowest price. Price goes up on, I believe, on Monday considerably. So go sign up. We have a money back guarantee. If you watch the first full day and you don't feel like you got a week's worth of great content on the first full day, if you don't feel like it was good enough for you, let us know. By the end of the day, we'll refund your money. Okay. So that's Pastel Live. Also, I'm heading out after Pastel Live. I'm going to head driving to Texas, driving with the dogs, taking a little time to drive. I have to stop somewhere along the way to look at a couple of venues that we have for future events. And then I am getting on an airplane once I get to Austin, and I'm going to Fall Color Week. Fall Color Week, I don't know if there's any seats left or not. There was one or two. We had sold out, got some extra seats. There might be. It's my fall retreat, and it's going to be in Monterey, California, and we're on the ocean. It's going to be really terrific. We're painting some amazing spots like Point Lobos and 𝗙𝗵𝗁𝗱𝗆. Is it 𝗙𝗵𝗁𝗱? What is 𝗙𝗵𝗁𝗱? I don't know. And of course, we'll find some inland fall color. And it's about 110 of us, and we're going to have a great time. We have music at night. It's like camp. We paint all day. You roll out of bed and you paint. We feed you. We give you a place to stay. And if you haven't done it, it's a lot of fun. And all levels are welcome. You don't have to be a pro. You don't have to be a beginner. It doesn't matter. And so we would love to have you. And so please come. That's fallcolorweek.com. If there's still time, you might have time. And then I'm judging at the Laguna Plein Air, which is one of the great events 𝗙𝗵𝗁𝗱𝗆 puts on. I'll be a judge along with Jean Stern and possibly somebody else. And so I'll be judging there. I'm going to be painting a little bit as well, not to be in the competition or the sale, just to paint. And also visiting some folks along the way. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And then I'll be back, and then we'll be back in the saddle. But I'm going to be away from this show for a full month. Wow, I know. So I've got guest hosts coming in, and we're not going to be doing Feedback Fridays or Marketing Mondays during those shows. So please bear with us, and I hope you'll come back, and I hope you'll go to our guest artists. The best thing to do is to subscribe to this program. Go to YouTube, look up Art School Live, and hit subscribe. And of course, if you're following me on Instagram or Facebook, follow there so you can get the broadcast on those platforms, or LinkedIn or Twitter, X as well. Hard to overcome that strong branding, right? So we have a free gift for you. It's 97 Incredible Art Secrets. You can get it online instantly, or you can get the DVD if you want to pay the shipping. It's a 2-hour video of some of the best secrets of videos we produced. Just go to 97artsecrets.com/free. And we produce professional videos. What you see on this program are artists that we have operating out of their own studios, but the stuff we produce, we bring them to our studio, or we go to them with our high definition cameras and our crews and high quality lenses, and that makes a huge difference. And we have hundreds on painttube.tv, professionally produced to the top artists in the world. We're very proud of what we are able to accomplish and how we're able to help people. So go to painttube.tv and check it out. Anyway, I'll see you in a month. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.